We are live. Hold on. There you go.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Steve. Hey, Kartik. Hey, Noah. Hey, myself. And hey, everyone joining us for episode 9 of Codified Security Office Hours. This episode focused very much on what's new in Checkoff and also what's new in Yor these days, because I think since last Office Hours, we have new open source goodies to share with those that may or may not know about it. So, yeah, without further ado, let's jump in. How is everyone today?
Amazing.
Doing good.
Very, very cool. I noticed, Noah, your background has changed from earlier. Like, it was an absolutely stunning vista when we talked earlier, to the point that I thought you actually had one of those Zoom backgrounds on. But
yeah, it's an optical illusion.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, the plan
he
for
is not real. He is not real.
That's just a video, right? That's pre-recorded. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Does he know he has thousands of people watching him right now?
He doesn't know. No.
Absolute superstar.
Okay.
Are we on thousands already on Twitch, Steve? That's great news. That's exactly what we want to hear. Awesome. Well, before we talk about, the usual staples of office hours, which include beer and some industry insights, but mainly beer. Just a quick heads up for what's coming up. We are going to talk about a load of the new changes in Checkoff, which include the ability to do Checkoff from config files. Kartik's going to take us through that and kind of a look at a deep dive into the how and what and why of those changes. We're going to look at some other recent upgrades to Checkoff, including the ability to do hard and soft fails. And then Noah's going to take us through Yor and some of the configuration options available in Yor to do some awesome customized tagging and tracing automatically in your pipeline of your infrastructure as code tags. So I think we'll kind of dot our way through those, Steve. And before that, let's talk industry.
Should we do intros?
Let's do intros.
Don't know who our guests are.
I think that might be a good idea. Let's do intros. Kartik, take it away.
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Kartik Pande. I'm a solution engineer at Bridgecrew. So I'm a part of the solution architecture team, and our role is basically to help our customers adopt Bridgecrew and get the most value out of it. And I also help maintain Checkoff. Also, fun fact, this is my first office hours. Good to be here.
All right.
Woo. Good to have you, and thank you both for joining us. I know it's with time zones and things get a little bit hectic with this kind of stuff.
Who's going to go next? Matt, you haven't gone. People know you though, don't they?
People. Oh, I would probably not, but no. Noah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So, hey everybody, I'm Naor David, and I'm a software engineer in Bridgecrew. I'm in the security engineer research team. That means I'm a maintainer of Checkov and Yor open source tools that Bridgecrew adapts to find compliance in IAC, in infrastructure as code. I will present some improvement that recently I contribute to Yor.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and welcome on board again for your first office hours.
Yeah, my first. Yeah.
Sweet. What I really love about both of our guests today, Steve, is when we think we should do more of we were talking, right? And it was let's do more of a what's new, what's changed in Checkov and Yor, and people that are involved in the project and writing PRs in the project, and both Noah and Kartik were just yep, I'm happy to do that. Let's get on and chat about these awesome things. So yeah.
I hope everyone else is as keen. Yeah, that'd be awesome. And by the way, don't think it's odd that it's your first office hours, because this is my second.
There is that.
That's twice as many as me.
I know, I'm pretty experienced.
It's 2 times more than me. 2 times more than
amazing.
me. Yeah.
But that's true. I probably should introduce myself, because Matt's done everything up till now. I'm new. I'm still technically new. My name's Steve Giguere. I'm a developer advocate like Matt. So if you've not seen me on here before, I will probably be a regular fixture. So you're gonna have to deal with that.
Therapy is available from common outlets.
Yeah.
No, welcome, Steve. And as you will have noticed with our awesome, like, stylish graphics and backgrounds and things, Steve is packing a fistful of punch with a load of like new streaming awesomeness, which you know, hopefully will make these nice and cool. You're quite welcome. Yeah, let's do the traditional. What are we drinking this evening? I know that it's not going to be everyone. Like, it is completely optional because time zones, and you know, lunchtime alcoholism does look a bit weird. So yes, completely optional beverages. But for those that are drinking, what are we drinking? Be it alcoholic or non. I'm going to start with you, Steve. You've always got something interesting in your fridge.
Yeah, I am drinking a Dogma Brewery. It's meant to be tech themed. Docker's Hook. See what I did there?
Ah, see what you did there.
Robust coffee porter. So there we go. Not bad, right?
Ooh,
Pretty sweet graphics.
Yeah.
You're on a porter already at 5 p.m.
It's only a 6% porter, and there's an England game tonight, so we've got a certain amount of conditioning you need.
There certainly is. Yeah, that is the plan, I should imagine, for Steve and myself. After this, find somewhere to watch the England game, because if you didn't know, it's coming home.
All right. What do you have?
I am about to crack open a staple in my fridge, which is the Cloudwater versus Brewdog New England IPA. It's just one of those that, come on, focus. Is it trying to do head tracking? There we go. It's trying to do head tracking. It is a staple in my fridge. It's just a really good collaboration between Brewdog and Cloudwater, and it's just like hoppy and fruity and just quite easy drinking. So it is a 6.8% though, so I probably have to take it a little bit easy. What about you, Kartik? I know that time zones are not in your favor right now.
So it's just 12 p.m. So it's a bit too soon to start drinking, but then in the spirit of office hours, I have coffee in a whiskey mug. So cheers.
Very good. Yeah, no whiskey in there, right? Wink, wink.
Wink,
Nope.
wink. Definitely not. Does that translate? Like if like you Irish up the coffee?
Yeah, well, but it'd still be, it's a slippery slope if I start at 12.
It is indeed.
It is a slippery slope.
Go. Well, enjoy your coffee. And last but by no means least, Naor, what are you on there in the Bridgecrew Tel Aviv office?
Actually, we're running out of beers right now, so
Oh no.
we only have non-alcoholic, so I won't humiliate myself. Yeah, so
Right.
I'm beverageless.
Sounds like we're drinking for three, Steve. So
All right, understood.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh well, without further ado, so yeah, the configuration options within Checkov that Karthik's kind of kindly contributed to the project. And I've said this before when we kind of released the blog post and announced this, like, I was so happy to see this because it was something that our community has been screaming out for. Like, there were so many people going, actually, my use case is I'd love to be able to embed a configuration file in my CI/CD pipeline that isn't, the horribly long config of the CI/CD pipelines itself. So, Kartik joined us as a solution architect and just kind of, made it so to steal a bit of a Bridgecrew Star Trek vibe. Do you want to take it away, Kartik, and kind of tell us like how that came about and, the design and like how you kind of got into like solving that community problem?
Sure. So like you said, it was something that was coming for a while. It was something that was necessary, given that we've made Checkov extremely configurable to cover as many use cases as possible, and because of that, the number of command line flags are kind of getting out of hand. So it was only logical to have, sort of an external configuration file that you can again put in source control, have different configurations for different use cases, different repositories, so on and so forth. So that's kind of where the inspiration came from, and where the sort of the why of it. As for the actual implementation, I love this quote from the founder of Stack Overflow, Jeff Atwood. He said, the best code is no code at all, right? And I think a part of it is just to have code that's easy to maintain, and the more code you add, the more problematic it's going to be. So the idea was to do config files in a way that's intuitive and also simple. So we picked the config arc parse library, which is sort of a layer on top of the existing arc parse library that we're using, and that kind of made things easier from an implementation perspective.
Cool. I'm a big fan of the config arc parse library. I'd never seen it until I looked at it in Checkoff, and now it's going to become like a constant in all things that use arguments that I would ever touch.
I had exactly the same experience when I joined Bridgecrew, and I was just like, yep, why have I not been using that?
Yeah.
Rather than insane amounts of custom if-else case statement nastiness. Yeah, very, very useful.
So are we going to jump straight into Kartik's demo, or are we going to, what's our next course of action, Captain?
I was thinking, if Kartik is okay with it, we'll hold the demo and we'll jump into a little bit of industry news, to complement the news with Checkov. We'll save the demo, and what's everyone been excited about playing with in the world of kind of internet security and kind of DevSecOps and infrastructure as code? Like, what are the things that have made you go, that's kind of cool over the past couple of weeks? I'm gonna start with you, Steve, but by everyone, jump in, argue, disagree. It's all good.
No one's gonna argue with this one because it's awesome. This thing, I got sent this, and I was like, oh, I have to sign up for this.
Copilot, awesome.
And it was like, because there's no code, and then there's code that AI writes for you, which I have confidence in, because I don't know. I haven't done it yet. I'm just on the edge here of getting it installed in my VS Code. So that's as far as I've gotten since I got approval to actually see the GitHub repo and get in and play with it. But it looks pretty cool. You just start writing. Well, this is a reasonable example. You just start writing bits of code, and then it just auto-fills. And I think it's using just the GitHub repo, like the billions of lines of code that I have as its kind of machine learning baseline. I guess where we have to go from there is, how much do we trust the millions of lines of code in GitHub to be the food for our AI programming? It sounds cool, and I want to use it, but I'm going to be skeptical until I feel confident. But I just thought that's awesome, and now I just want to write something from scratch to see what happens. So I will report back at the next office hours as to whether I just wrote a whole pile of garbage or not.
Do you think if you were relying on it to write your code, you would write your tests yourself, or would you allow it to write your tests too?
Oh, nobody likes running tests.
So just all in, just go for it.
That's right. Funny. I just want to basically turn it on, kind of maybe tell it what I want, and maybe just go out there and read a book or something.
Grab a beer. Yeah.
There we go.
Like, tell it what you want, and also tell it how long it thinks it's going to take to write your code, and then be like, cool, I'll be back then.
What if you tell Copilot to write Copilot? Can you do that?
Oh, if you became a contributor to Copilot using Copilot.
Kartik, that's the halt decision in computer science. There is no solution to that problem.
It's incredibly meta. Incredibly meta.
The whole thing. You cannot write a program that determines if other program exits gracefully, let's say. Yeah.
That's me. So that was a quick one, but it's an ongoing one.
Awesome.
That's very cool. Yeah.
Anyone else? Kartik, Naor, have you seen things this week that have made you go, wow, that's awesome?
Well, I can go next. They're not really awesome, but kind of scary, and it's the biggest ransomware event. The one with the breach with Kaseya supply chain.
I'm gonna put it up.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So
we had this on our list to talk about.
That's so good that it shows that the security industry is all kind of focused on kind of the same things at the same time. Because myself and Steve chatted earlier and we're like, we're definitely going to cover this. So that's awesome, Kartik. You brought it up.
Sorry for jumping the gun on this one. But,
not at all.
Yeah, this was a pretty good article by Kevin Beaumont. The good thing about this is, of course, he has not only covered the actual CVE and kind of details about the exploit and what kind of files were used to implement the exploit, but he's also, towards the end of the article, he's also spoken about the responses from Kaseya themselves, about how they're planning to address the issue, etc., and of course, who has been impacted by the issue. The interesting part was apparently schools in New Zealand are also impacted because of this, which is kind of sad to see.
Yeah, because it drops ransomware, right? And sadly, not the old school ransomware that was written in Python and really easy to reverse engineer.
Yep. It's actually using PowerShell scripts to, I think it's doing an update on downstream systems, which disables Windows Defender, or at least some settings of Windows Defender, and then it just encrypts the whole thing.
Cool.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's like this is the year of the supply chain attack.
Definitely seems so.
Yeah,
so
it's. Oh, go ahead,
one thing I was trying to work out from reading the same article actually was the way it's a supply chain attack because to the people that have been infected, this software is part of their, quote unquote, IT management supply chain, right? It's not a supply chain attack in the way that the CVE that was used to originally pop the software. I don't think that came from a third-party library that someone has managed to get a PR into. To me, reading it didn't sound like that kind of supply chain attack, more just the fact that a lot of other companies rely on this software and therefore it gets auto-updated with this kind of ransomware.
Right, absolutely.
Was how I took it.
Yeah, it's a similar concept. It's not a million miles away from SolarWinds because they're a piece of software used by other people. Now, the way they were compromised was totally different, and they built their backdoors into their CI. And therefore, when it was distributed, there was a networking backdoor, right? That's way more complicated, I think. Whereas this one, I don't know the details. I don't know, Kartik, if you've seen where outside, well, I have to scroll down. But it was, it's new. It was a 0 day, wasn't it? In the Kaseya VSA, and
right.
Then it became the CVE number up there is just a reservation because they went, oh crap, had to report it. It reserves a CSV, but if you even look up that CVE now, there's no details. It just says a reserved name. So it's pretty cool. 0 day supply chain attack. I mean, I shouldn't be a fan of that, but
no, I think the register was actually it is not good when ransomware companies just happen to have 0 days for IT remote management software used by thousands of companies.
It is amazing, isn't it? It makes you wonder, I don't know, the amount of work that's being put into. Well, it's certainly when you talk about supply chain, we think of it as almost like software composition analysis and use of third-party libraries, and we're in the software development supply chain. But supply chain extends so much further beyond that. It's the software you make, it's the dependencies on your libraries, it's the software that you use and the dependencies on the libraries that they use, and the software that they use to make their software. I mean, supply chains are massive. Everything's a supply chain. So now it's why do I need to hack Facebook when I can hack 3 tiers along somebody who thinks that I'm not a target? Why would anybody target me? I'm nothing. That's the weak link, and that's where people are targeting now. It's like twice this year, so pretty cool. I mean, not cool, but cool.
Yeah. A lot of my friends actually, this ruined their holiday weekend in the United States, just because
Really?
this happened on the 2nd of July. And then, of course, 4th of July is a holiday here. So the people in incident response, it was a busy weekend for them.
That typically is what happens, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like they time everything so that the incident response and the IT staff are least available.
Yeah. There's definitely some elements of social engineering behind the very complicated technical 0 days, or maybe not complicated. Who knows?
Find a good holiday. It's funny. I remember the last World Cup. If you looked at the stats on any kind of cyber attack, when Russia was playing football, there was no noise.
Infer from that what you will.
Yes.
I mean, talking about these kind of things, like especially since Google released the deps.dev. And for anyone that doesn't know, actually, I've got it opened on my machine right now. But whenever we talk about supply chain attacks and this becoming more and more popular, like just look at the Kubernetes dependency tree in terms of software. Like,
so simple.
To worry about.
So simple, right? Like,
yeah.
Jesus.
Wow.
I know there was a tweet about it, but like, I'm not. I mean, I am picking on Kubernetes, and I have Kate's love, so I'm picking on something I know. But it's not that other big software projects won't have exactly the same. But like, how do you even start to try and like manage that level of manufacturing security when your software manufacturing process has that many dependencies?
I think it's just a bad graph.
It's just probably an error in there somewhere.
Yeah. But cool that graph technology is allowing us to kind of visualize that, like, and see where we are and kind of, all that cool blast radius stuff.
Was that your cool tech thing?
My cool tech thing? No. Do you know what? I do have a cool tech thing, but in the interest of Kartik's time, I'm going to jump around a little bit and let him show us the wonderfulness that is Checkov configuration files.
All right. Kartik, ready?
And then we'll come back to other cool tech things.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt.
No worries.
Right. So we've kind of discussed the idea behind implementing the config file feature and sort of, the thought behind doing it. The next thing I'd like to sort of demo is how you can get started with using configuration files with Checkov. By the way, this is a link to the repository, and in the README, we have some good guidelines on how you can use Checkov. We've basically introduced a couple new commands, actually 3 new commands. One is to create config, which spits out a configuration file. The second one is show config to actually show you the contents of your configuration file and also your command line arguments. If you have an environment variable in there, you can look at that as well. And the third one, of course, is -- config file, where you can specify the path to the config file. Now, without further ado, let's take a look at the demo.
Let's just take a moment to appreciate Kartik's terminal.
If anyone is interested, this is, I think it's power level 10K. That's the one I'm using. It's a layer on top of power level 9K, which is supposed to make it a tad bit faster and has some new cool styles and stuff. Cool. So back to the demo. I have here a clone of the TerraGoat repository, which is a vulnerable by design Terraform code repository. Do not deploy this to production. This is just for guidance and to take a look at the stuff you should not be doing with Terraform. So I have a clone of that repository here, and let's say my typical workflow involves running a complex checkoff command, which I am going to copy and paste in here. So I'm doing a bunch of things here. I'm saying, give me a compact output, run it quietly, and give me soft fail on, et cetera, et cetera. And this is all good, but the issue with it is the command is way too long, which makes it harder to edit and also to store in source control. So now with the addition of Checkoff config files, what you can do is you can add the create config flag and specify a config file. So checkoff.yaml. And that's it. It should create a config file in the directory. So this is what it would look like. And of course, you can take a look at it by using checkoff --show -config. Yep. And this shows you your path to the config file and everything you have going on in there. Now, because we've created a config file, I can just call checkoff like that without any arguments. It should pick up the config file from the directory. And there we go. It's using all of the exact same arguments that we were passing in the command line before that. Now, a couple of quick things to note is you can override config file options by specifying them inline. So let's say if I just want to do one check, I can do CKV AWS, let's say 157, and that'll override everything I have in the config file, and it'll only run that one check. So command line arguments take precedence over config file arguments. Now, this is sort of the crux of what config files or what this feature gives you. But there is another more interesting use case that config files can help you achieve. And I have a demo for that in my stash. Cool. So the use case here is we had a customer who wanted to release policies, release custom policies in their pipelines, but they did not want to suddenly start failing everybody's production deployment, right? You don't want to write a check which is suddenly going to block everybody's deployment, and it's going to be a nightmare for whoever is dealing with the pipelines there. So the idea would be then to have separate configuration files for your dev environment and, for instance, your production environment. So the use case, again, so I've created a couple of custom checks, and they are YAML-based, so they're using the new spec. So if you take a look at this custom check, what this basically is saying that, hey, check all the resources and ensure that they're being tagged by Yor, which is basically just looking for the Yor trace on every resource. Now, let's say I decide to release that check. I'd like to enforce it in my dev pipeline. So anybody who's trying to deploy the dev ensures that their resources are tagged by Yor. So for that, I can create a config file, which will scan this, and it'll, of course, source from the external policy directory. So if I were to run checkoff, there we go. It's only looking for that custom check that I created. But if I'm deploying the same thing into production, what I can do is create another config file for production. Which adds this argument on top. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to soft fail if and only if the violation is for the custom check that I added. So by this, I'm essentially giving the user feedback that, hey, you're not complying with this policy, but at the same time, I'm not going to fail your build. You can still deploy to production, I will maybe enforce this in a week. So the way you do it in your pipeline, of course, is to use the config file flag. And then probably you could read in an environment variable, which just says production. And there we go. The exit code should just be green, which is a 0 exit code, and we can confirm that here. All right, so that kind of helps me, that kind of shows what you can achieve with externalizing Checkov configuration. Any questions? Anything else you'd like me to go into?
Yeah, I have a question. I have a question about the name convention of the config file in case we won't provide any name to the -- create config. What would happen? Checkov would fail, or would put a default name to the config?
Good question. So let's test it out. I think Checkov will fail, but nothing like testing in production in a live demo. Right. Yeah. So today it's going to fail, but it would make sense if we probably default that to a .checkov.yaml file.
I think and there's the lovely org parse library in action, right? That we were talking about earlier. I think I noticed this when I was first playing with the pre-release Kartik of the config file, and awesome demo, by the way. Thank you so much. I almost kind of like that there's no kind of default there, because we expect a lot of users of this to potentially have multiple Checkov configuration files, right? We might have them named after different stages so that CI/CD can do slightly less rigorous, soft fail stuff on dev or test than it does on prod. To your point, with things like Yor, maybe you haven't got the Yor tags until you go through the production CI pipeline. So we almost kind of expect to potentially people embracing this feature have multiple Checkov configuration files.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So that actually brings up one good point. So by default, Checkov looks for the .checkov.yaml file, and it looks for it in 3 different places. But this is the default config file name. But that doesn't mean, excuse me. So that doesn't really mean we're tying anyone down to this name. You could essentially use whatever name you like, and that we're letting you pick and choose there. So makes sense, Matt.
Cool. Yeah, I like that. Rather than being super opinionated.
So that means you can have a default file that everybody uses, which has almost that the security team might be in charge of, but then you've got something that adds or subtracts based on the environment variables, or whether it's dev or test or prod, as you said, that you can specify with config file on top of the dot file. And then finally command line parameters to override even those, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. I like it. I was hoping you were going to show a use case like that, because I'd seen the config file. And I think Matt and I have even made little videos about it already, both of us. But I like seeing a use case like that, where you use the environment variable to designate which config file you were going to be choosing. So that's cool for people to watching this video to go, now I know how to start my designing. So that's good.
And arguably, you could do exactly the same without config files. It would, and I've tried it, and it's just messy, because you end up with copying and pasting entire sections of your GitHub actions pipelines multiple times with different conditionals as to which environment variable you're running in, and just having it in proper configuration files was much needed.
Yep. And thanks again to the community, for the feedback and, the idea that, hey, it's about time you guys introduce a config file.
Sounds like an ultimatum, the way you put it. It's about time.
I mean, come on, Checkov, version 2. Let's have some config. I like that. Yeah, thank you so much, Kartik, to contributing that for the community and also for the awesome demo. And like Steve said, some really good kind of food for thought on use cases. If someone's watching this and going, actually, yeah, that makes sense. We don't all want to run the same Checkov at every point of the pipeline. We might want a soft fail, we might want a hard fail, we might want to the use case you pointed out with one of our customers that they write a lot of custom policies, and they sometimes want those to run without other things, but they sometimes then want to run the full complement of policies from both their policies and the Checkov policies. Like, yeah, makes sense.
Amazing.
Awesome. Without further ado, I will say thank you and good afternoon to Kartik, because I know you have customers to help, and not all heroes wear capes and all that good stuff. But thank you so much for taking some time and joining us today and bringing that awesome demo.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was really fun. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. We'll do this again. Yeah. Thanks everyone. Cheers, Kartik. And I will at this point say, Noah, like things you've been interested. We're going to jump straight back into some kind of industry stuff, because while we've been jumping around a little bit today, I just properly got my thoughts flowing. And so, yeah, I've got a few things, but what's been exciting you?
So I found a really cool article by Nathan Beck. It's a gamer guide to playing AWS. So it's a very educational article on how to enter the AWS world. So first of all, you pick up a character. So we can, so the DevOps engineer, of course, this is us. And then you have items. You have item set. So so the boots is persistence. You have a DynamoDB, RDS, S3, etc. My favorite is the the compute. Yeah, the leggings, the Lambda and EC2, etc., etc. And I think it's a really cool one because a lot of people, including myself, when entering the cloud ecosystem, it's very frightening. It's a lot of services to remember and to use. You have to pick the right service to your need, and this makes a lot of sense, I think, to new developers and not new as well. This is a really cool one, I think.
That's
and
awesome.
And Nathan is a AWS employee. Just saying.
Gamer's Guide to Playing AWS. Like,
yeah,
love that. That.
That's my.
How did you find like your journey into kind of getting started with cloud services? By the way, you said there's so much to it, and a lot of people find it hard. Like, were there any resources when you made that journey that were helpful, or did you have to kind of hack it through yourself?
I think that the term OJT is the most relevant one in this scenario. I came to Bridgecrew 2 years ago, actually 2 years and 5 days, and I was working as a data scientist in the IDF, and I have zero knowledge in cybersecurity and cloud, and I had to work it through. I had to write Terraform code. I had to learn the CloudFormation syntax from the official documentation of AWS, which is not very pleasant to a new developer, because it has a lot of. It's very cluttered, in my opinion. It's very cluttered and very threatening at first. And of course, you need to use, let's say, I call it the enabling technology to enter cloud. So if I was only putting my trust on CloudFormation, the entire Bridgecrew platform was not that mature, because Terraform and serverless framework helped us to deliver very robust, very scalable especially compute services, which is my domain in the security engine team in Palo Alto Networks. And I think you have to read a lot of magazines of TLDR sec and Cloud sec list and mailing lists. It's very, very helpful. And I think that I took the AWS guide from TLDR sec. I'm almost certain.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's it.
I definitely put a +1 against anyone kind of, certainly on the cloud security side, like TLDR sec, Cloud sec list, like, yeah, good resources for kind of your daily reading of all that stuff.
Yeah, and you also have to stay relevant in AWS, because 2 years ago, AWS console was a different thing. I think it's a very it develops itself. You have to keep up with the new let's say hard limit and soft limits of each service. So you have to know when you're designing a new feature that the Lambda would run at most 15 minutes. And have it, and the Lambda has at most, let's say, 500 megabytes of storage. So you have to keep up that as well, and that's a real engineering problem, in my opinion.
I remember when I got my certified developer AWS cert, the thing I was most worried about, and I hope I'm not breaking any like rules talking about certs, but it'll be very vague, I promise. But like one of the things I was most worried about was like all the exam, like public, this is what might be in the exam, had like all the limits for all the services, like even though you just don't use all those services
as free storage tiers.
Right. Yeah. I did pass, that's all I will say. So do not fear if you're watching this. But that did scare me a little bit when, like, how many of those to try and research.
Yeah.
Sounds horrible. I haven't passed it. Thanks for the tip.
No worries. I mean, hopefully not a tip. Like, hashtag please don't revoke my AWS certs. Yeah. When you were talking about like all the new AWS and staying relevant and things, it reminded me of the you've all seen the meme, right, for the fake AWS service that's been going around Twitter and it's just blown massively out of proportion. All good fun. Well, did you have sorry, Steve, go for it.
No, I was gonna say, I think are we going to dive into Nora's demo, or you were going to ask him another deep dive question?
I would love to dive into Nora's demo. Noor, do you mind if I put you on the spot? And for those of our viewers or viewers in future that don't know what your.io is, do you mind giving them a quick, what is it? How does it help? And then kind of let's dive into what's new and what you've been working on.
Yeah, of course. So Yor is, first of all, an open source project by the Apache 2 license. It's every line of code is public. This is our cool website, and Yor has one role for now to tag everything. Hashtag tag _ everything. So you just have a lot of Terraform resources, CloudFormation resources, serverless resources, and let's say that you are a R&D lead, and you want to tag each provisioned S3 bucket, EC2 instance, and Lambda. You want to provision the managing team, like a tag. Of course, most of Terraform resources are taggable, and if the resource is taggable, you can just add team security engineering. If the Git modifier was my user, because I can fetch that information. I have a source repository, I have a source code. I also have the Git blame object. So Yor has group of tags, and one of the tags is called the Git tag group, and it fetch information from the Git blame object. For example, the Git modifier, the last modified date, the repo name, the owner name, which is the Bridgecrew, etc. And the new ability that we support now in Yor, this is an example of Yor tags, and every tag that starts with Git _ is from the Git tag group, and the Yor _ trace tag is is a UID that we generate to just give a unique identifier to each deployed cloud resource. So if you have a messy environment, you can just go from your build time, from your source code, copy paste the Yor trace, go to the AWS console or the AWS API. You can even query from the CLI and just search for that tag, and you got it. You don't have to look for it everywhere. That's what Yor does mainly. We of course want to expand it to even more internal usages at Bridgecrew in the future. So stay tuned.
Awesome. And I just want to quickly add there that for people that want more information on like the individual use cases of Yor and how it can help automate tagging and things, like not only Yor.io, loads of information, loads of documentation, but all of us have been working on a series of Yor blog posts and videos recently kind of showing, how to use Yor trace and how that helps visibility in the cloud, how to use all the different use cases of Yor. So yeah, check that out on the Bridgecrew.io blog.
Okie. That's
sweet. All yours, Noah, for terminal action.
All right, so I will be very original and I will use the infamous TerraGoat repository. Please do not deploy. Do not deploy TerraGoat to your live production. I will use Yor to tag every Terraform resource under the AWS subdirectory because this is what I want to do. Before I will show how to tag using the custom config file that I will show. I will just go through we'll deep dive into the new config file that Yor now supports. So we did this custom config because, like Checkov, the CLR argument can be tedious to supply. And you want to put it in your source code to track it and to have versions of it, and not only use your tag -d and etc. So we did this config especially for calculated tags. The example I talked about before was an example of custom tagging, and let's say that it has some dependency. It's not a constant value, because if the Terraform resource was modified by a Git modifier, which is me, I would be mapped into a specific team, specific tag value, security engine. And if Matt, for example, modified that, I will tag him as another team, as a solution architect and a DevRel, and etc. So this is what this YAML file just describes. Okay. So we always have the tag groups object, okay, and then we have a list of tag groups. So, for instance, let's say I want to have a tag named ownership, which is what I talked about just 2 minutes ago. So we have under the tag group ownership, we have tags. We have a list of tags that belongs to that group, like we have the Git. We have for the Git, we have like 6 or 7 tags. So the first one is called env, the environment. We can support a default value, which can be rendered from existing OS environment variable. In this case, git_branch. By the way, this is the serverless framework notation. The dollar, excuse me, I don't know how to say in English this character, and
parentheses.
Parentheses. Thank you. And the env means, the env keyword means I want to look the git branch environment variable. So it will be evaluated into the let's say I set it to master. It will be master. We will say we'll see it in the live demo. And this is a very simple tag because it has only a default value. Okay, the env tag. When it comes for the real team ownership tag, which means the tag name would be in Terraform, CloudFormation, etc., would be team_ownership, and then we have a certain structure. Okay, so we support a default value. SRE. Let's say this is the default theme. But we also provide a structure that's called matches. And matches is a list of optional, of a possible tag to be actually calculated for the team ownership tag. And what we do here is that if under tags of that existing resource, we have the git modifiers, is one of these values, Rotem, Avni, and me, and Nimrod, it will be security engineering. Okay, the tag value would be security engineering, etc. At platform engineering and application, and we can put how many that we want. It's not limited to a certain number, and it's very important to note that I use your tags. I use git modifiers, which is a your tag. But let's say that I didn't run your at all on TerraGoat. This is the master branch. It's not tagged. So what we did here is that we had an order of tags. We first tag every, let's say, a hard-coded your tag group, which is the git and your trace, and etc. And then, based on that, we apply this custom logic. So your every tag that you previously had with your would not be modified if you provide this config. So it's backward compatible. It's very important to note. This is just another tag which called cost center, and it has the same logic. I would not elaborate on that. And this is the config. So if we want to use your to tag based on that tag groups file, all I have to do is run your tag minus directory. I want to tag the subdirectory of AWS, and provide config file with the -- config file option with the YAML file I showed you earlier. Let's run this, and we have, if you remember, that the env should have been evaluated to the git _ branch, which is master, and if I will echo that environment variable, I should see it's really master. So it's really cool, and because one of the second team members committed TerraGoat, it's security engineering with the calculated team ownership tag. And of course, it was Nimrod. So every other your tag exists perfectly as it was.
Awesome.
Yeah, so this is the new ability in your. If you have any more questions, I would gladly answer that.
Yes, so this allows, and there's a lot more content of this in the blogs, right? For these kind of use cases. But this allows us, instead of having to write code to extend your to do custom tagging, what you can basically do is for your particular organization, and we need these team tags, we need these kind of cost allocation tags. It allows you to really easily define that in a simple configuration file based on tags that may already exist, or based on environment variables in your CI/CD pipeline. And then when that Terraform gets deployed to production and becomes real AWS components, you can easily find those components that belong to that team or that cost center via those tags, right?
Yes, of course.
That's super cool. Super cool.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think when a lot of people who are new, or not new to tagging, but new to strategic tagging and consistent tagging, what this solves is pretty immense. Because there's AWS and Azure, and everybody's got their best practices around tagging in their documents you can go read, and they talk about risk management, access control. Matt's doing a blog on cost allocation. It's not just the obvious tag and trace that we started with. It's huge what people can do when people really start seeing what Yor can do in combination with this config file. Every time I've talked about it, people get really excited. So It is
Yeah.
it is a huge problem solver that there really just isn't anything out there at the moment that's doing it.
I love the term you just coined there accidentally, Steve. What was it? Something tagging.
Strategic?
Strategic #strategic tagging. Like, I like that.
You go buy that domain.
Noah, that's awesome. And thank you so much for like the code and the contributions, but also thank you for the demo as well. That's like super useful to see, because I know the blogs kind of go into the individual use cases where that's kind of building everything into one. So not only can that single config file show, well, all these objects I create in AWS will know which their cost center is, will know which team they're related to, will know which organization's Git repo for the Terraform they came from. And I should imagine those three tags together would allow, a sleepy engineer at 4 a.m. looking at a PagerDuty alert to immediately find the resource they need and find where in the code that resource was created from.
Yes, I think it just solved the same problem that Yor is trying to solve, just it excel it at just making more precise and more flexible, in my opinion.
That makes sense.
Totally.
Because tagging is always going to be a per company. You cannot know what your corporate policy is for tagging, right? So having that configuration file is super useful.
Unless we put some AI into it.
Unless we go back to Steve's demo. There we go.
All right.
Fantastic. How's everyone doing on the sorry, Nora, I know that I'm rubbing salt in the wounds because the office is out of beer, which is terrible, but how's your beer going down, Steve?
Gone.
Oh no.
Yeah,
no,
it was good. That's a good sign.
That's truly awful.
I have a whole fridge just right here with a tapped. Check that out.
like
All right.
actual beer.
You're the man.
beer
You're the
with
man. You're the man.
I was very much hoping. I'm definitely not going to be able to show this, but down there is a keg of beer that I was hoping I could. I was hoping I could maybe sample on this office hours, but for those that are home brewers, it is not fermented as quickly as it was meant to, and it still has a couple of weeks to go to try and reach the strength it needs. So,
yeah,
canned beer for me for the foreseeable future. I was wondering if we had time to very quickly duck into one other Checkoff feature, which is kind of cool for those that use Checkov as kind of a centralized way of enforcing policies, and whether we could just jump into I will take this as almost my cool thing in tech, even though it's part of our open source. It is here.
Okay.
The Bridgecrew platform, which some of you will either know or not know. If you don't know of it, it allows you to basically correlate and do not only like centralized reporting and historical tracing of kind of data from Checkov, data from your runtime environment, and everything in between. But it also provides a way of writing custom policies either via a kind of WYSIWYG editor or via a very simple kind of JSON and YAML language that we saw Kartik kind of demo earlier when he was talking about custom policies in Checkov. And I think one of the coolest things that we, can preview here, because it arrived as a pull request like this week, is there's now a policy API into the platform where not only can you CRUD, but you can also pull down all of your organization's policies that you've created as in the custom policy editor with your API key. And Checkov is now able to use that API key to pull down those policies. So if you have developers who are running Checkov on their local machines, I know that we have people running the Checkov VS Code extension. We have developers before the VS Code extension that were running Checkov as a Git pre-commit hook to make sure if Checkov fired any issues, you weren't going to make that commit. It's kind of cool to know that if you have organizational policies, for example, making sure there's your tags, making sure there's things like that, you can actually now have Checkov automatically pull down that central repository of custom policies from Bridgecrew. So a security team or a security advocate within a dev team could write that policy once, and everyone's Checkov CLI would also consume those custom policies, which I just think is really cool.
Yeah,
So
I would like to add. Yeah, sorry, Steve. Go on.
No, go on.
Yeah, so I think it's that's everything that we recently did regarding configurations, because this is office hours topic. But I think we can just say that when you enable a developer, which is Bridgecrew's users and Checkov users, in the end, to customize their, let's say, the business logic that they want to apply on tags or configuration, and no code is good code, as Steve said.
Right.
So this is just what we do. We just let them specify in a configuration, a flexible engine to process that configuration, and that's it. It's a multiplier, in my opinion.
Right.
So I was going to say is that my understanding is that, so if you're using Checkoff or Checkoff in VS Code, right, we can pull the platform level policies here so that we have parity in what's running across anywhere. Because
Right.
as a developer of any form of code, there's nothing more frustrating than thinking you're doing the right DevSecOps thing in my environment, have it go into CI and have it fail because there's another policy that the platform has put into place that you didn't even know about. Whereas now, we're good.
Right. Like, I even have code spaces up at the moment. I was going to talk about code spaces another time for another day. It's awesome, by the way. But because code spaces is VS Code based, like our VS Code plugin for Checkoff, I've got TerraGoat open, as everyone seems to have today on this office hours. You can see it's highlighting these policies right there in the developer's environment. So before he's or she's saved a line of code, before they've changed anything, that's the best time to fix code, right? Before it becomes a commit, before you have to wheel it back out of production. And the idea that not only are all these inbuilt Checkoff policies going to start showing up here, but Steve, to your point, that you could have, business specific policies as well. So that before you submit to CI, you're not going to go, oh, okay, and that, and that, and that, and I need to change that, because the same policies are consistent right from where you're writing your code. Like, I personally have never seen anything like that, and I think that's super special.
It's bonkers. I love it. I like this.
You like
I'm
what?
jealous. I'm jealous of your code spaces. Okay, well, we now need Naor to create some incredible new innovation so we can have another office hours in the near future.
Yeah. More
Yeah.
like the next PR that Naor commits, we will have an office hours and talk about code spaces. That would be amazing.
Before merging, and at the end of the podcast, we just merge it.
Ah, live merging. I like that.
Live
Nobody's
merging.
done that.
Oh,
Live.
And you guys will approve it, and I will live fix comments. I put you in an emoji, and that's it.
That's even worse.
It wouldn't be called pair programming, that would it? Yeah. There's got to be a thing for that where you code live on
guests.
Twitch.
Yeah, PyCharm Ultimate now supports live coding together.
Love it. Oh, we
Yeah.
should so do an episode like that. Right. Coming to I'm going to regret saying this. Coming to a office hours near you soon. Live coding with Naor.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love that.
You can be responsible for approving his pull request.
I am.
Yeah.
I feel confident. I feel good about this. We have all the right tools in place in the pipeline. We'll be fine. Well, that feels like the right time to say thank you very much, Naor. Thank you very much, Kartik. And we should, the beers are empty and the code spaces has done its job. So he's topped up.
I have a new
Is there something
one.
else you wanted to say, Steve?
I got sent this for free, by the way, by accident by this company, Two Tribes. I got a free 4-pack with a bottle of hot sauce.
Is
So I
that
clicked
because
it.
it's only 3.8% and they felt guilty?
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
I got a free 4-pack. I
That's
went
cool.
online, clicked the link, and they sent me 16.
Oh, wow.
That's because I know beer. They knew who I was.
You too can benefit from this accidental SQL logic misconfiguration on that website by going to. No, I'm kidding.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, sorry, I stole your ending thunder.
Not at all. I enjoy a beer-related ending thunder. Noah, Steve, thank you so much for joining us. Kartik, thank you for joining us earlier. And yeah, this has been Codified Security Office Hours, episode 9. And apparently the next one will have some live coding. So stay tuned for that. Enjoy your evening, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye bye.